What?
Oh, I was just thinking. While you were sitting here like a bump on a log, little old me was bringing home the bacon.
Rachel McAdams plays a socially awkward cat lady with dreams of being the head honcho. Dylan O'Brien plays the toxic male boss who won't give her any credit, that is, until they land on the equal playing field of a deserted island. It's the new movie Send Help, the latest in a string of woke movies made by established directors that Hollywood conscripted under the veiled threat of career suicide if they refused to go along with the program. Hello again, everyone. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Today's review of the horror movie Send Help stars Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, and it's the first movie by Evil Dead director Sam Raimi since 2009. And Gene, for a movie that seems to be getting credit for being clever and original, it's a story convention we've seen before from movies like Dead Calm, Survival Island, and the 1974 Italian film Swept Away, where the balance of power shifts between two characters once they become castaways on a remote island far away from the rules of society that impose that power differential. Send Help follows a disgruntled company woman, Linda Little, and her entitled corporate boss, Bradley, who become the sole survivors of a plane crash and are stranded on a deserted island, forcing them to battle hunger, danger, and their own fractured power dynamic, until eventually the psychological fight for control pits the two castaways against each other in a twisted struggle for survival.
Yeah, it's a movie you'll pretty much cast away in your own mind about 5 minutes after seeing it because, Roger, not only do we get another shop-worn convention to chew on, but also a gender-political premise that proves Hollywood didn't do an ounce of self-examination after Ricky Gervais told them they were in no position to lecture anyone about anything. Instead, what we have here is another feminist wish fulfillment story where the supremely talented and aspiring girl boss is doling out just desserts to a patriarchy that's keeping her down.
It's the kind of trope that's overstayed its welcome, if not its usefulness, by propelling an agenda that won't seem to be satisfied until it achieves its own power transfer over the masses it's trying to reach. It's 2026, and Hollywood is still asking us to believe that the trench of power is rooted so far in favor of male entitlement that your own eyes must be deceiving you when you go to a bookstore and realize 90% of the authors being published nowadays are women. Why are we still being pounded with this message?
Because corrupt ideologies can't remain relevant without the victim narrative to convince people there's more work to be done. And this may be getting off track, but feminism was an ideology that should have raised eyebrows from the moment it was discovered that Gloria Steinem was a CIA operative and second-wave feminism was funded by the Ford and Rockefeller Foundation, two patriarchal families that suspiciously funded an anti-patriarchy movement.
I'm not sure there's anything off track about it because Hollywood's obsession with continuing to deliver the same messages over and over in the face of audience rejection really begins to raise the question as to what function films nowadays are serving. Are they still the mirror that's being held up to society, or are they the sculpting tool of an elite society that's interested in deciding for themselves what society ought to be? At the beginning of the movie, when the Linda character played by Rachel McAdams realizes she's being passed over for the VP job that was promised to her, she storms into her new boss's office, a fortunate son who inherited the company his father built, where we learn the VP job was handed to his less accomplished, cardigan-wearing frat buddy from college. Meanwhile, the story uses that same frat buddy to execute the narrative cliché of a coworker who brazenly takes credit for the management report she wrote without even reading a single word of it.
Of course, and after the company plane crashes near a remote island, the narrative of inherited wealth becomes so farcical here that the boss is made to look like a guy who can barely tie his own shoes. When he tries to survive without the help of his underling, he can't even build the most rudimentary shelter, then later uses logs to spell the word help and accidentally spells Heppel.
Well, to be fair, he may have been delirious at that point. Heck, I'd probably start spelling things wrong, too, if I hadn't eaten for a couple of days.
A couple of days? I bet you'd be swooning after just a couple of hours.
Excuse me, but you're talking to a former Eagle Scout. If we ever got stranded together on a remote island, I wouldn't be the one going hungry.
Yeah, I bet you'd try to kill me and eat me.
I'm sorry, what?
Nothing.
Let me tell you something, Gene. If we were on that island, you'd be begging for that Snow White dress because that was nothing compared to what I'd make you do for a roasted crab leg.
Oh, I see. So you think you would be Linda and I'd be the functionally retarded boss, eh? Well, have I got some jolly news for you, St. Nick. The only thing you have in common with Linda is the tuna fish that was hanging off the side of her mouth. Is that Vietnamese? You'll not speak to me in a foreign language.
Hai tuano ben toi, ben se ko kam giak nu voa juok ta shong tu juong mon ho chi minh vei.
Hai ngoi kung choi tro joma, trong thoi gian tam nangi toi jan hok saun gon ngu tu rosetta stone wag yo thi bang kong the neumot loik suk fam nauma toi kong hiu juok.
Ach, du schlauer kleiner Jude. Immer versuchst du einen Nicht-Juden auszutricksen. Ich wette, du hast dir nicht die Mühe gemacht, Deutsch zu lernen.
Tatsächlich habe ich das getan, aber keine Sorge, mein kleiner Teigjunge, du wirst weder jüdisch noch klein sein.
Solo Thotlumake Chaya.
Anyway, while Roger remains gravely mistaken over which of us would prevail in a fight to the death, he's correct in his assessment of what these stock characters represent. After the company plane crashes on the island, there's a kind of feminist wish fulfillment that bleeds into the very character when the socially awkward and physically unattractive loser magically disappears to the point where Rachel McAdams is literally just playing herself. She goes from skeevy bag lady with tuna fish on her lip to a confident, attractive-looking woman with a beach babe vibe. That's not clever symbolism. It's feminist ideation of what she could be, if not for it being everyone else's fault, lazily expressed as a continuity error.
Even if Raimi was giving us the symbolic, changes in character aren't the same as changes in characterization. While some may argue against the accusation of this being feminist wish fulfillment by pointing out that Linda is the real antagonist of the story, that theory is contradicted by the fact that she's ultimately rewarded like a victim. There's another movie featuring a psychotic protagonist which expresses the idea that the anti-hero will always pay a price for who they are. And it's the ending of American Psycho, starring Christian Bale.
I want my pain to be inflicted on others. I want no one to escape. But even after admitting this, there is no catharsis. My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself. No new knowledge can be extracted from my telling. This confession has meant nothing.
Gene, that non-woke ending exists in stark contrast to the woke ending we get in Send Help, which maneuvers around its defense of the character by creating false empathy for the Bradley character in a campfire scene, where Linda tells Bradley it's not his fault for being a monster, because monsters are created rather than born. It's false empathy because Raimi isn't asking you to feel sorry for Bradley in that scene. Instead, what Raimi is really doing is asking you to subconsciously reserve that message for Linda when she kills 4 people and reaps all the spoils so that the character can bask guilt-free in the glory of power, fame, and public adoration. And it's the golf club representing the boys' club that she symbolically uses to kill him and gain entry into that world.
And it's not the first time they've pulled this maneuver of masculinizing and glorifying the female anti-hero while simultaneously putting the male antagonist through an emasculation ritual. In the recent movie, Companion, you get a female AI sex model who innocently commits a murder because she was programmed by an unsympathetic incel character who thinks the world owes him something and who the writers felt the need to emasculate by telling the whole audience that he has a small wee-wee.
I'll wrap this up by reiterating what you said in the opening about this being the latest in a string of woke movies by established directors that wouldn't dare refuse to go along with the program. Because in Paul Thomas Anderson's monotonous and inexplicably praised one battle after another, a bunch of woke resistance fighters are the heroes you're not supposed to call a domestic terrorist group as they operate in an alternate 90s timeline where illegal immigration is a rite of passage rather than a violation of a country's sovereign law. And in the beginning of that movie, the Sean Penn character is being forced at gunpoint by his female captor to summon a spur-of-the-moment erection. Of course, that's nothing compared to what I'd make you do if we got stranded on an island where...
Okay, I know what you're going to say, and I'm about 2 seconds away from slapping the tuna fish right off your face. Anyway, that's it for now. Join us next week when we review Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, a movie that would make Sean Penn never have to worry about having to get another erection ever again. Until then, we'll see you at the movies, and the balcony is closed.
Promotional considerations were paid for by the following: the Hollywood Diversity Calculator, If you're just another brain-dead studio exec with no idea how you manage to rule the roost, chances are you'll probably need to know how to stay there. With the Hollywood Diversity Calculator, you'll be able to meet the studio's mandate and avoid being quietly pushed out the door. Simply scan your film crew with the downloadable app and let our skin pigmentation and facial geometry model determine who stays and who you'll be needing to find a replacement for. The Hollywood Diversity Calculator. That's movies, baby! The Big Cheese Human Pest Remover. Are you tired of that employer who's inviting you to quit by deliberately making the work environment unbearable? Contact the Trading Spaces House Extraction Company, and they'll send their team of liquidators to physically airlift your boss's house to a location of up to 300 miles away. The Big Cheese Human Pest Remover. If they think reducing your hours is effective, wait till they come home and find out just how far their new commute to work is going to be. The Real World Affirmations clothing line. Had enough of having to feign success in a corporatized dystopian wasteland? Maybe it's time you bucked the system and gave people their daily dose of nihilism. Simply choose from our wide range of apparel to say what nobody wants to admit about their situation. The Real World Affirmations clothing line. Enough with this total freaking bullshit of pretending like you're happy and everything's cool.